24 to 5, Jazz Radio 94.1 FM here on the Gold Coast. And it's time now to talk to one of our great Australian musicians, John Morrison. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks, John. Lovely to be with you.
You're just getting involved in a very interesting project. You're going into a play. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, a bit of a... Well, first for me, I've done a little bit of this sort of thing in high school, but gosh, not really professionally, of course. And the opportunity came up. James had seen a script, Brother James had seen a script about a story that was set during the Second World War, and in fact in Brisbane. And when the American soldiers first arrived during that period, there was not really much of a war to fight, and all sorts of shenanigans went on. And indeed, there was quite a problem when one of the soldiers was shot by an MP. And the Aussie diggers sided with the American over this sort of problem, and they thought they were being a bit over-policed. Anyway, the answer was to have a jazz club, a music club, and of course the military leaders and the government felt this might be a way to keep everybody together and under control. So overnight, there was a sensational jazz club because of the era, of course, and the musicians in the band were either 14 or 74 apparently. That's the type, but of course there were visiting American performers as well that were in the services, and so it was quite a lively place. And so it's called Boundary Street, and it's got a screen in Perth as part of the Perth Festival in March, and then it's coming to Brisbane in September. They're the only two screenings we know about it, but a couple of weeks each time. So it's a jazz play really, and set around a jazz club and jazz scene during that era, and of course the things that went on there. So I'm pretty excited about it. James has done the music, and his young son Harry, who's just turned 13, is going to be the bass player, one of the young players in the club. So apparently it's good dancers and a good cast. Emma Pask is going to be playing one of the roles as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. We're just about to launch into the rehearsals in a month or so.
So that must be going to take up a lot of your time. How does that affect your other projects like Swing City Big Band and various other things that you do?
It's always a juggling act, and the band has had been reasonably busy towards the end of last year. It's a good time, actually. March is a sort of a quieter time for the big band, and so I'll be taking a little bit of a break, and it's not a huge commitment in the sense that many stage shows go for 6 months or more, and this one's only for a few weeks, 3 weeks in Perth and 2 in Brisbane. So that sort of commitment's not too much. And what I usually do is I continue my education projects while I'm interstate. So in Perth, I'll be visiting a lot of high schools during the day, and as I do a regular part of my touring, I won't be doing night performing, but I'll be doing lots of workshops. So that's really what I spend a lot of time doing these days.
Yeah, well, you're obviously involved with a lot of young jazz musicians, which is a great thing. I was talking to George Golla the other day, and he was saying how hard it is to make a living as a jazz musician. How are some of these young musicians, how do you pass on tips in helping them to get on in the world of jazz?
Well, it's a very good question, John, and because we're so keen with and passionate about a jazz education, we like to educate these young people in a way that they can survive. The playing's not usually the problem. The ones that end up coming to me are already good players, and they're going to forge their careers themselves. You can help them. People like Adrian Cunningham and Matt Baker and those sort of folks who came through my band when they were just out of high school. More or less their seasoning included, business development, making sure that they've got some good publicity, and these kids are all pretty switched on to the social network and the internet as well. Indeed, the best way is for them to have multi-streams. So what we do is we look at not just their playing, but what else they might be good at, and whether they've got audio engineering skills, whether if they're good with computers, then website development, and what they end up doing is becoming part of the music industry with these greater skill sets, and it means they can survive. I mean, most professional musicians teach and enjoy teaching, as I do, and it's an important part of what we do, but you know that the high schools and now primary schools have jazz bands and stage bands in them. So that's important, income stream as well. And also it's a good thing to do, even with young high school musicians learning or playing in big bands and stage bands may not become professional musicians, but of course most scholars agree that playing a musical instrument and getting a little bit of balance and self-discipline out of learning an instrument is good for anybody. So we sort of really try and balance it out. And I've just had a week with 100 students here in Sydney at the what we call Jazz Workshops Jazz Camp, and these are the hardcore high school kids. They come from everywhere. We get them from even a couple from New Zealand, and we've had plenty from Queensland and South Australia, and they all sort of come into Sydney, and they're really young musicians, high school age musicians that want to be prepped for a career, not just in music but with a jazz focus. And so it's a pretty exciting week. I love it. It certainly exhausts me, but I finished that one last week, and we had some just such fine players with really, really hard workers, and the ones that are ready to really work are going to be fine. And I think you soon push aside the ones that think music's going to be a bludge. They realise pretty quick it's going to do something else.
Well, I suppose marketing is a very important part of being a musician and making a success. Are you able to help them with that sort of thing?
Yeah, and really it becomes a testimonial, and I talk quite openly about my own, world. And I mean, I spent most of my professional career playing with my younger brother, and had a great taste of the music business, and went in the late 90s, and I said to James 2 years out from the Olympics, we were looking at how business was going, and we were playing in Europe together, and I he knows that I always wanted to have a swing style big band, and I'd had the whole things in the back of my mind for a number of years, and I kept putting it off. And because we were just forging, through other areas of the music business and enjoying it. It was good. And I thought, well, I knew when I was going to start a big band, I was going to be throwing lots of marketing money down a hole. So I got myself ready, and I figured 2 years before the Olympics I'd get it launched. And then, of course, the Olympic year, we played the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games with the big band, and played the welcome fanfare at the beginning of the ceremony, and of course all the spin-offs and the other work that year helped the big band sort of cement a little bit of publicity, if you like. And then I sort of go through that with them, and so it's not always going to be an Olympic opportunity, but there are all sorts of opportunities where timing and a little bit of forethought will assist, and finding a niche. And then I bring in some ex-students who have, like Adrian and Matt and other students that come back and have carved their own little niche, whether it's in publicity itself or, Al Hicks is back from America, and he's been over playing with Clark Terry, and he's an incredible young drummer that came to Jazz Camp many years ago, and now is moving back over there. He's moving between the two countries. He's not very well known here, actually, but in America he's quite a big name, and he's going to settle in LA, and he gives the students a talk about international opportunities. And we really want to show the young musicians that the old cliche that the world is the stage. And I mean, Eamon Dilworth's going to London to settle in another month. I don't know if you know him, from the Dilworths. So there's a few of these young players, and of course Matt Baker and Adrian Cunningham, you might know from Galapagos Duck, who've toured up there. They're both settled now in New York. And so Australian musicians find favour overseas because, if they're good and they work hard and they can play, they're going to be fine. And there's really there are lots of opportunities in other countries as well as here.
Well, John, I suppose working with other great musicians, particularly overseas, it all rubs off, doesn't it? You learn things from working with all these people.
Well, you do. And look, we all make the trip anyway. James and I went in the mid-'80s and spent a year in New York, and we were pretty green then. It was only through jamming in a pizza joint, at Arturo's Pizza Joint, that this agent walked by and he heard James playing the trombone, and I was at the drums, and Jimmy Young was on the piano. It was a rough little joint, but he came in and he just stuck his card in James's pocket. and he said, you're Frank Rosolino reborn. That's all he said, you know. So the card came home. We didn't think much of it, and eventually you chase it up, and of course that led to a contact with a lady called Edith Keegan in New York, and we went back 2 years later, and then James was on the road with Cab Calloway, and of course with jazz festivals, and then we met Ray Brown, and then of course James's international career throughout Europe and indeed America happened because that guy came into a pizza joint and stuffed a card in his pocket. You just don't know what's around the corner in this game, but being prepared, is important. And I think we were discussing the opportunity. You go to America or you go to Europe and you soak it up and you just see what's there, and it does rub off. That's exactly what it does. It rubs off in that you come home and you've got ideas and you're sort of charged and if you're comfortable where you are, we've got a lot of musicians sort of move around a little bit between Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, in those three particularly, and find favour and learn things from that too. Settling yourself in a new city is a real task for a musician. You've got to be really on the ball and ready to make phone calls and ready to work hard.
Yeah, it's a total commitment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a passion, and it's exciting because I don't want to put anyone off it if they're really into that sort of commitment. But of course, we have this saying, it's not the end of the journey that matters in this. What matters is the journey in the end. So you have these sort of goals, and I'm going to be this good one day, and you can actually get tied up in the struggle to get there, but realise that as you play, it's like it happens much slower. We form our playing skills and our in this sort of improvised music, you grow slowly, more like a tree, and so you don't forget to enjoy and to soak that up as you grow, and we sort of show them that nice to, if you've got a strong tree and it grows slowly, and you work hard, steadily, you'll get there. But of course, there's no quick solution to it.
Well, I spoke to Vince Jones a while ago, and Vince was talking about the strong trees, and he said that you get better with age. He feels that your voice matures with age. How about as a drummer or as a musician? Do you feel that you improve with age?
Yeah, I think you do. I don't think it's just exclusive to music either. I think that music exemplifies that idea because it's an expression. It's an art that has that expression. So what you're expressing there is experience, and experience is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And from musical terms, people like George Golla and Don Burrows that have this kind of experience. When you get onto the bandstand with those guys, you feel it. It's in the music and it's in them, and they are so comfortable and so with the language and so at ease with the language, and they've got all that history and all of that knowledge. There's not a thing they haven't seen or a set of chord changes they haven't played, and so that experience rubs off. And I imagine in other skill sets or other types of jobs, of course, that goes well. Sometimes industries don't value experienced people, and that's kind of a mistake. I think that's their peril. And the culture that I know, musical culture, the most that values their elder statesmen are the Brazilians, and the young musicians over there absolutely know what experience is and how much of the life story there is in the music, and they just hope to live long enough to play with that kind of experience. And just visiting Brazil and getting a sense of that is a great taste. And it teaches you to go onto the bandstand with somebody like George Golla and drink it in, drink it up. and I love it every time. People like Don, and who I played with only a few months ago, came up to Sydney from Paynesville. He's not playing a great deal. George is playing quite well. Last couple I've dealt with him, fantastic. He's just firing. And then Ed Wilson and Bob Barnard, of course. And I learned so much from Len. I really miss Len because Len Barnard had all of that. He was a great orator, a great drummer who could just pass on these things. You could just watch him play or listen to him talk, and the music was just really in him. It was fantastic. He was a great mentor.
Yeah, well, it's great that the older musicians can pass on their experience and maturity onto the younger musicians, and I'm sure they'll glean a lot from it. Well, we're just about running out of time, but We're going to be very interested to hear about this play, particularly when it comes to Brisbane. It sounds like a real historical record, and great to see that James is involved, in yourself and also Emma Pask. So we might talk to you a little bit closer to the event when it comes to Brisbane.
Yes, lovely to talk to you today.
It's 8 to 5, Jazz Radio 94.1 FM. That's one of our great drummers, John Morrison.